today we are going to be talking about adding mixed numbers. So let's write in our table of contents. Today is October 7th, 2016. This is Unit 1, Lesson 13. We are adding positive and negative mixed numbers. Okay, so let's take some notes. Start with our heading. And our objective for today is students will be able to evaluate an expression with mixed numbers by adding and subtracting fractions. And our essential question is, how do you add positive and negative mixed numbers? We can fold our paper into sections, questions, and notes. All right, so we're going to start with a little review of how to change mixed numbers into fractions. So review, mixed numbers to fractions. So our first example is -2 and 4/5. We want to turn this into a fraction so that we can later on add and subtract. So we take the whole number and we multiply by the denominator and we add the numerator. So first we take -2, multiply by 5, actually we'll keep the 2 positive and we'll add the negative at the end. So we'll convert this first and then we'll add the negative at the end. So 2 times 5 plus 4, and our denominator stays the same. So this gives us 10 plus 4 all over 5, which is the same as 14 over 5. And we can't forget this negative sign at the beginning, so this is equivalent to -14 over 5. So our justification is we multiply by the denominator and add the numerator. So we did 2 times 5 and then we added 4. 2 times 5 is 10 plus 4 is 14. Then the denominator stays the same. So the denominator was 5 here, the denominator is still 5 here. So that's our review. And the question is, how do we change mixed numbers to fractions? Okay, so our objective was to evaluate an expression with mixed numbers by adding and subtracting. So we're going to learn how to add mixed numbers. So this is our next section, is adding mixed numbers. So let's look at an example. First we have -2 and 3/4 plus -4 and 1/2. And we're going to have a justification column to keep track of our steps. So the first thing I need to do is I need to convert these to fractions. So I'm going to convert these to improper fractions so that I can do the addition that I need to do. So let's take this first number and we're going to turn it into a improper fraction. So we have 2 times 4 and then we're going to add 3. So we get, the number is still negative, but we have 2 times 4 plus 3 and the denominator stays the same. And same thing for the other one. We're still adding. So this number is 4 times 2 plus 1. So it says -4 times 2 plus 1. And the denominator is still 2. So notice both of my numbers are still negative. I can keep simplifying. So this is going to be -4 times 2 is 8 plus 3 is 11 over 4. And I'm going to add a -4 times 2 is 8 plus 1 is 9 over 2. So all I did was the first step, which is convert them to fractions. So I have a -11/4 plus a -9 over 2. And now we have two fractions and we need to find common denominators. So the second step is to find common denominators. So we did this before in our do nows. So first I'm going to draw a chart. And I'm going to find multiples of 4 and multiples of 2 because those are our denominators. Until I find one in common. So I have 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12, 4 times 4 is 16. And then 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 4 is 8. And I see they both have 4 in common. That's the least common one. So I'm going to write two fractions over 4. So I have something over 4 plus something over 4. And the fractions are still negative. They're still both negative. So looking at my first fraction, I have -11 over 4 and I want something over 4. It's already over 4, so I'm just going to keep 11 over 4. Then I have to turn -9 over 2 into a denominator of 4. So I'm going to multiply by 2 on the denominator and multiply by 2 on the numerator. Because this is a form of 1, we can do that. 9 times 2 is going to give us 18 over 4. So we found common denominators and equivalent fractions. So we have 11 over 4 became 11 over 4. 9 over 2 became 18 over 4. Then my next step is the third step is to find the sign of the answer using the foldable. So you're going to take your foldable, and we know we are adding integers. So I'm going to open adding integers, and I have negative 11 fourths and negative 18 fourths. Those have the same sign. They're both negative, so they're same sign. I'm going to add the numbers and keep the same sign. So if I have two negatives, the answer is going to be negative, and I'm just going to add up the fractions. So I know my answer is going to be something negative because it's a negative and they have the same sign. So I'm going to add them up. And finally, I'm going to add or subtract. In this case, my foldable tells me with the same sign I need to add the numbers. So I'm going to circle add the numbers. So I add 11 plus 18, and that's going to give me 29. So that's 29, and the denominator stays the same. Negative 29 over 4. And I can't simplify that because they don't have any common factors, but since the numerator is bigger, I can change it back to a mixed number by dividing. So 29 divided by 4. 4 goes into 29 7 times, with a remainder of 1. So my final answer is the whole number is 7, so it's negative 7, and the denominator is the numerator, and the remainder is the numerator, and the denominator stays the same. So this is my final answer, negative 7 and 1/4. So it's kind of a long process, but here are the steps. You're going to first convert them to improper fractions, then find common denominators like we did before in our do nows. Find the sign of the answer using the foldable. We're doing adding integers, so it's always going to be adding integers, and you have to see if it's the same sign or different sign. And finally, you're going to add or subtract depending on what the foldable tells you to do, and then change it back to a mixed number. So now on the back, you are going to try an example. Here's example 2. Let's try a positive 3 1/3 plus a negative 1 1/2. Please pause the video here, and students, please try to solve this on your own. Follow the steps. Okay, let's try and see if you got the right answer. Hopefully you were able to finish. So we have a justification column. The first step is to convert to fractions. So to convert to fractions, I'm going to multiply by the denominator, add the numerator. So I have a positive number. This is 3 times 3 plus 1, and the denominator stays the same. Then I am adding a negative number, something negative, so I have to leave the negative there. 1 times 2 plus 1, all over 2. That's my second number. So here I have positive 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. This is 10/3, plus a negative 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3, negative 3 over 2. So step 1 was to convert to fractions. Step 2 is to find a common denominator. So I draw my t-chart. I have 3 and 2 that I'm going to find the common multiples for. So I have 3 and and 2. 3 times 1 is 3, 2 times 2 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 4 is 12. Then 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 4, 8. So I see that we have 6 in common. So I need to turn a positive 10/3 into something over 6. And I'm going to take my negative 3/2 and turn it into something over 6. So this goes here, and this one is here. So I have to see 3 times something is 6. I know 3 times 2 is 6, so I multiply the numerator by the same. So 10 times 2 is 20. And 2 times something is 6, 2 times 3 is 6, and 3 times 3 is 9, so this is negative 9. So if I rewrite my new fractions, I have positive 20 over 6, it's positive because this one is positive, plus a negative 9 over 6, and that's negative because this one is negative. So I found common denominators. And my third step is to find the sign of the answer using my foldable. So again, I'm adding. I have one positive, one negative. So I'm adding integers. So I open adding integers. And I had one positive and one negative. So they are different signs, one positive, one negative. So the rule is subtract the numbers and use the sign of the number with the larger absolute value. So I'm looking at the original. I had 3 1/3 positive, 1 1/2 negative. So I know my answer is going to be positive because 3 1/3 is further away from 0. So my answer is going to be something positive. Then my rule tells me to subtract the numbers. So I'm going to take step 4, add or subtract. It tells me to subtract. So I circle subtract. So I'm going to take 20 minus 9. It's going to give me 11. So I get 11 over 6. And finally, I'm going to convert back to a mixed number. So I take 11 divided by 6. I know 6 goes into 11 one time, and the remainder is 5. So 1 is my whole number. This is a positive number, 1, and 5 over 6 is my final answer. Check to see if you did it correctly. If you did not, please erase it and fix it. Find your mistake. The question for this section is, how do you add mixed numbers? So your independent practice. And homework if you don't finish. Make sure you write this on a separate paper. So there's only 4 problems. Here's number 1. Number 1 is 3 1/2 plus negative 5 1/2. Number 2, negative 4 2/3 plus 3 5/6. Number 3, negative 2 5/6 plus negative 1 and 1/3. And number 4 is negative 5 and 1/2 plus negative 2 and 1/5. So you're writing this on separate paper. Make sure that you show your work and write your answer in a box.